folks, in just a couple of minutes, we're going to begin today's service. We did want to remind everybody to please silence or turn off your cell phones. And officiating today's service will be Rabbi Andrew Bush. Thank you.
We gather to pay honor and tribute to the memory of Mildred DuBois. It's a fitting day to join together as we at points in the service may hear her great-grandchild, for which Sundays was the regular weekly day for the visit. So on that level, it's fitting. Our tradition teaches us to turn to the Psalms for comfort and for solace at such times of loss. Adonai roi lo echzar benotesha yarbitzeni, al mei minuchot yanachaleni nafshi yashovev, yancheni v'magalei tzedek leman shmo, gam ki elek begeit sel mavet lower ara ki atai madi, shiftecha u'mishantecha hema yanachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged surai, deshanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya, akto v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shafti b'veit Adonai lo orek yamim, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It says in the book of Ecclesiastes, L'chol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Rabbi Alvin Fine taught, birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey. A going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. As surely as we have turned to ancient and modern words of wisdom, it's important that we hear specifically about Mildred today. And so I'd like to invite up her son Ben to begin some remarks.
We are sad today, but we are also blessed. Mom went peacefully to sleep on Wednesday night after talking on the phone to both Gwen and Ellen, and 3 days after enjoying Enzo, her one-year-old grandchild. Although none of us expected that awful phone call from the nurse at Roland Park Place, We are very thankful that she died peacefully in her sleep at an old age. For the last couple of years, her memory failed her, and the conversation became more mundane. But I never lost sight of what my mother meant to our family. The photo collage that Jeff Wagner graciously assembled captures what I cherished in her. As I went through these photos, I could feel again what a remarkable person my mother was. An incredibly strong, independent woman who was full of personality, humor, and intellect. As I think about your long and rich life, Mom, 92 years old, from the perspective of a child and then as an adult, here's what I remember. As the daughter of immigrants, you forged your own path as a young American girl. You married your high school sweetheart and were the love of his life. You were a working mom well before it was in fashion, successfully juggling a career as a nurse at Sinai while always being there for us. You eventually left clinical nursing to venture into a whole new field of medicine, quality review. Coincidentally, the topic of my undergraduate thesis, which she actually read. I don't think anybody else actually read it. You instilled a love of learning, and in all three of your children encouraged us to achieve our dreams irrespective of our gender. After we all left for college, you got your BA in sociology while you were still working. You were considered the cool mom by most of my friends. Karen says to this day you were the first adult who engaged with her as an adult. Despite yours and Dad's busy work schedules, vacations were always a great joy. Remember the Magathy with the Wagners for many summers? Many joyful multi-generational vacations occurred at our apartment in Ocean City. And Expo 67 in Montreal was where we felt like rock stars because Uncle Macy had designed the Ontario Pavilion. You were the matriarch rallying us around, rallying all together over our family dinners. You were a whiz in the kitchen, pulling off holiday feasts by yourself. Your grandchildren claim you made the best London broil around, and family birthdays were not properly celebrated unless you baked a chocolate cake. You drove your yellow Mini Cooper like a race driver and considered a sign of failure when anyone passed you. You were always in search of and actually achieved the perfect haircut. Nothing made you happier than weekly trips to Loman's, which went out of business when you stopped shopping there. Dogs, you always loved dogs, from Leon when we were kids all the way to Howard at Roland Park, named for Howard Dean. You dearly loved your grandchildren, each one in a special way, and recently you were blessed with a great grandchild, Enzo. Fast forward to now. Though as our parents age, especially if they decline mentally, it is easy to forget the way things were. But now I can look back and say you had quite a fulfilling life. You never lost your laugh. You showed us that the most important thing in life is family. You were a role model and a driving force for all of your children and grandchildren. You lived your life with dignity and left this life with dignity. I'll miss you.
And let me invite up Gwen.
There may be a little repetition. It's the same mother. Can you hear me? Our mother was a very powerful woman through her physical beauty, style, and intelligence. She was extroverted with great social skills. She was a great cook and used food to show her love, especially for her family, which meant everything to her. Her ambitions had gotten thwarted by the times and the circumstances of her father's belief that women didn't need to go to college. She managed to get him to agree to let her go to Sinai Hospital School of Nursing. I have heard from others, including my older colleagues, that she was a very good nurse. I remember once a young friend was seriously ill with metastatic cancer, and Mom went to her home and did what she needed to do to make her more comfortable. Maybe under other circumstances she would have been a doctor, but her ambitions got redirected, toward her children and grandchildren. She taught herself to cook and was a great cook. Once, when Terry and I were living in Queens, after John and Simon were born, Mom went to New York City for colonoscopy done by the great Dr. Shinya. One is not allowed to eat the evening before the procedure, despite not being able to eat. She saw it as another opportunity to make a dinner for us, and it was a wonderful dinner. I have long forgiven her, though I remember my 18-year-old self feeling very embarrassed at the time when, as a letter carrier, my mother had tracked me down, it was raining, to make a delivery, her own delivery of galoshes. Maybe she was recalling the years before when she had walked to Mount Washington Elementary School in the snow to pick us up, put on our galoshes, and bring us safely back home. I think having little children and little grandchildren were probably the happiest times in her life. And our growing up may have been a hardship for her, but that is what children do. So despite us being above average and good-looking and having had a good husband who adored her, she had a chronic low level of depression with which she struggled most of her life. After my dad died in 1996, she had 15 years of life on her own for the first time as an adult. She married when she was 20. Taking senior courses, socializing, volunteering, having a gentleman friend, raising an abandoned, cutest dog in the world named Howard, as you know, named after Howard Dean. Did I tell you my mother was liberal? But in her 80s, she began to lose her memory little by little. After that, there were a series of losses. She left her Pill Hill house of 57 years, and we have some neighbors, thank you, from Pill Hill, and moved to Roland Park Place. She was talked into giving up her car. That was her hardest loss during that period. There were some milestones: 3 marriages, Anne and Paul, Simon and Cassandra, Jacob and Kelly. God, Jacob, I'm so sorry. Although she was only able to attend Anna's, but what a treat, because she got to see Anna get married in her own wedding dress that she had worn to her wedding to Irwin 65 years earlier. Fit perfectly. There were 3 master's degrees that she wasn't able to quite appreciate, although she'd inspired her grandchildren to seek them. Eventually, she stopped missing her car. She adjusted to Roland Park Place. She was able to live independently with the help of 4 wonderful women, Vera, Hyacinth, Toy, and Mary. I saw Mary here today, who took turns during the day helping her stay safely in her apartment. One day, after talking about a tree she helped plant on Keyworth Avenue when she was a child, Vera took her in the car to see that address, and there was the tree still there. She loved most of all having visitors in her apartment, which began to feel like home to her, thankfully. The last and most joyful milestone was the birth, of Enzo and her first her great-grandchild. How she loved those visits, holding Enzo every week when Ben and Karen and Mozart and Dylan would come over, the dogs, or when Enzo, his parents, grandparents, and Roscoe, the dog. She was happy, would smile, would laugh that wonderful laugh of hers that you may remember, and say how lucky she was. In the end, she couldn't remember visits shortly after they were over. She lost the sustaining memories that gave her something to look forward to. She didn't seem to be depressed, but the women who took care of her said that she would ask, "Why am I still here?" Who knows if she had anything to say in the matter, but her last night on earth, she died peacefully in her sleep. 92, dying in bed at home, perhaps during a dream that peacefully transitioned her into her eternity. She was blessed just as she blessed so many of our lives. It is hard for me to feel it's a tragedy. I will miss her, but I'm really glad for her, and we'll treasure her memory. Thank you.
It's important that we hear from the next generation as well, and so let me invite Sarah up.
My grandma was a fierce, independent, and fully self-possessed lady. An unabashed force of personality with an equally enviable recipe book and more than enough elbow grease to, as previously stated, navigate as a first-generation American, to get herself through nursing school after having 3 kids, raise them and work, and keep a full social calendar and always perfect hair. It seems almost serendipitous that Grandma Mildred would pass away sandwiched between her great-grandson's birthday and a massive women's march. Love of family and the courage to speak out are two pillars I associate most closely with my grandma. Growing up around her and the strong daughters she raised and her daughter-in-law, my mom, she adopted into her family, I never questioned the idea that women can and should be opinionated, independent, self-assured, and complex. Not many people get hand-me-downs from grandma, let alone ones that they feel that they are cool to get. But as previously described, that Mini that she got rid of came to me. It's a yellow Mini, and it came about because at age 80 or so, as grandma told me, she saw a New York Times ad for a Mini, thought it was cute, went out that very day, bought a yellow one, and it still is the coolest car that anyone in my family has ever had. But it was much more than a car that I inherited. From her, I learned perseverance, a love that I keep to this day for New York Times crossword puzzles in pen, the secrets to skincare, an unapologetic self-assurance, a social charm, how, as my dad said, not to drive if you don't want to terrify everyone. I used to actually talk to her about crossword puzzles when she would drive in hoping that I would inspire her inner grandma and get her to slow down. And of course, the power of a good sale, some good Tropicana proofs of purchases, or a good London broil, and that not all of us are cut out to make it. When I called her for her recipe, she told me to add the ingredients till they tasted good and asked if I really was sure I wanted to take it on, which I was not. I also learned from her that I could always visit more. Even when she didn't remember who I was, she knew that I could still visit more, that I'm still going to catch a cold without my jacket, and that I should have cleared my plate when I was 4, even the carrots. It is sad to say goodbye, but I think I speak for all of us, that we are grateful for all the warm and rich time that we had with her. I love you, Grandma. Thanks.
Jake?
Grandma, there's certain times in your life when words take on different meaning to you. When I heard the news about Grandma's passing, I had one of those moments. I thought of her funeral, and I could hear the words from the rabbi clear as day in my head. Mildred left behind 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. I stopped for a moment, paused, reflected, smiled, and tears of happiness flowed down my face. Family, in my mind, will forever be linked to Grandma. One of my first memories as a little boy are the monthly trips my cousin Martin and I would take to Grandma with the hair cutter. While I was in the chair getting my hair cut, Martin, who wasn't allowed to have candy, took advantage of this parentless opportunity to stuff handfuls of candy in his boots. Grandma clearly knew, but she was never one to snitch. When the rage of Ganyel Adim, my preschool at the time, was to grow out rat tails, which is exactly how it sounds, a long tail of hair on the back of your head, my parents pleaded with me to cut it off, to no avail. Grandma didn't seem to mind it until one day she made up her mind and she wanted it gone. The next haircut appointment, she slipped me $4 into my pocket, and the rat tail quickly disappeared. See, kids have complicated relationship with their parents. Grandchildren do not. Like a wagging dog greeting their owner, grandparents have figured out the secret to parenting. In high school, I always knew no matter what and where, when my basketball game was being played, I would look up in the stands and see 2 faces, Grandma and Carl. I guess she thought her presence was not enough because my junior year, she started sneaking me chocolate bars at the end of every game. Word got out on the team that Grandma hooked it up, so I began sharing the bars with the team. Grandma found this out, and by the end of the season, she was buying bars for the whole team. We, the grandkids, when we were talking amongst ourselves, have many memories we shared with each other that have all revolved around family. We all have memories of spending summers in our childhood running around the beaches of Ocean City in Tropicana t-shirts. I could still picture that closet, 20 or so t-shirts in all different sizes, just full of Tropicana shirts. It wasn't until we grew up that we realized the reason we had all these t-shirts was because Grandma was the one person in America who actually saved the proof of purchases from the container and sent them in for free t-shirts. We also have memories of our weekly dinners at Horn o' Horn, a buffet-style restaurant we visited every Friday. The grandkids would race through dinner so we could spend hours playing tag outside the restaurant. We lamented how these were great memories built around family and food, until one of us asked why in the world we were going to Horn and Horn. The only explanation we could come up with was that Grandma must have had coupons to this place, without a doubt. But this is a happy occasion for me. She lived 92 wonderful years, and she created this wonderful, tight-knit family, I think a reflection of her. One couple grew to 3 children, which became 3 couples. She yielded 6 grandkids, 9 extended grandkids, 7 doctors, best of all for her, granddogs, great-granddogs, but she still held on. Just like grandmothers know what their grandkids want, we knew what Grandma wanted too. As stubborn as she can be, we knew damn sure she wasn't leaving until she got what she really wanted. When that beautiful smile, those wide eyes of Enzo came into the world. Her job was complete. Sorry. Till the very end, the sight of little Enzo would light her up like no other. He turned 1 and she passed peacefully into the night. Her job was complete. She will be missed.
And let me invite Ellen up, please.
Well, we know we've turned a corner because I don't have very much to say. It was a shock. It was a good death, but it was still a shock. She wasn't sick. My rabbi at home said when someone dies in their sleep, they've been kissed by God. They die in a dream. As everyone has said, she was a strong and powerful woman. Penny, my oldest friend who's here, said that she was the strongest woman, no, the strongest mother that she knew. And this strength was pretty much entirely in defense of her children. Her friends, her co-workers, her neighbors loved and appreciated that force of personality. Everyone knew of her strength, everyone I think but her. I don't think she really understood herself to be very strong. Somewhere she remained that little girl that I think Benji talked about, the first child of immigrant parents. She started to tell us stories as she aged. Some of them were very poignant. One was about how she had to raise herself, really. The one story that's not so poignant is that, or is sweet, is that she went to school, she was sort of in kindergarten, and she found out that everybody had birthday parties, and it was her birthday. So she told all her friends to come home with her. Her parents had no idea what a birthday party was, so as a result, birthdays are our family's religion. I don't know, well, I guess she stopped calling me in the last few years because she wasn't able to remember, but first my grandmother died and she stopped calling, then my father stopped calling and died, and now, I don't know, Benji and Gwen, you're going to have to call me. There's been a lot of laughter here, and there's been a lot of laughter since we got together Friday. That was totally from her. She of course had a beautiful laugh, and for me at least, and I don't know about the others, it was making her laugh was so important and such an achievement. I would glory in it to the last day. And we're all pretty funny, so it's a result. She put her entire force of personality into creating a family that I think she knew she wanted, at least from the moment she met my father, or married my father, and perhaps even before. Together they took decision after decision to bring that family into being. I'll just mention one, because so many people from our neighborhood are here. she had the money from her father to buy a house, and they were looking for a house to buy. And my father would say, well, that one's nice, let's buy that one. That one's nice, let's buy that one. And then she saw Pill Hill, and she knew that's where she wanted to be, and that was the end of the search. We grew up there. We had really very happy families, childhood growing up. We were surrounded by families who knew and loved the values of education and of good choice of satisfying professional lives. And that's shaped us, I feel very strongly. So thank you, Mother, for that, among many other things. Jacob said particularly how much she was about family. And I should add, as I said to the rabbi, family, we were from a Reform family, and a lot of my friends at home think being Reform isn't really being Jewish, but family life was entirely about around being Jewish. She has left us, this is her greatest legacy, she has left us our robust, loving family full of sweet, wonderful, loving, interesting people. So thank you, Mother, for that. I don't know what it's going to be like to be without her, but I guess I'll find out.
We have reached the week in our Torah reading cycle, Parshat B'Shalach, where the Israelites actually get out of Egypt. Seems fitting, for the image of this week's portion draws us to the Passover Seder, to families gathering around in a meal. Jonathan Safran Foer, in his New American Haggadah, describes the Seder meal, saying the following: here we are, individuals remember a shared past and in pursuit of a shared destiny. The Seder is a protest against despair. The universe might appear deaf to our fears and hopes, but we are not. And so we gather and share them and pass them down. I didn't know Mildred in her prime, but in talking with her family yesterday, it struck me how fitting this Torah portion, the Exodus, the Passover story, and this passage are. Mildred, as we heard, loved to draw the family together for all the holidays, the Jewish holidays, the non-Jewish holidays, which became Jewish holidays. She was, as we heard, a fantastic cook each and every day, but it was on those holidays that she really pulled it all together. I'm told her Passover chocolate cake was the source of legends, actually. She had learned and embraced the value of family, and she set about drawing her family together, and she kept hosting those meals as long as she could. And even without her being the host, I think her stamp is very much upon those celebrations. Even when he was sick near the end, I'm told that Erwin was still able to enjoy Millie's cooking, still able to enjoy in a moment where so many people can't eat, have no appetite. Such was the food he was used to. For Mildred was, I was told, a force of nature. In fact, the kids wonder maybe if that was what attracted their father to her in the first place. They were quite the couple from the start, from high school to building their life together back here at home in Baltimore after the war. And we have seen and already knew and heard the evidence of what they created today. As a mother, Mildred motivated her children to pursue their educations, and they did. And while in another generation she might have been a doctor, she accomplished a great deal as a nurse, even if she didn't fully appreciate it. I was speaking to someone yesterday, a nurse who knew Mildred from earlier in her nursing career, speaking about how effective and how professional and how respected Mildred was at the hospital amongst patients and co-workers. It was a moment, as we heard, where if families had a choice, so many mothers weren't working, but she left her mark and had energy and intellect to give beyond just economic reward of working. At work or at home, Mildred made things happen. The family felt her intelligence and her drive. Not just that gorgeous laugh, as Ellen described it to me, but her fast, rambunctious sense of humor, passed down through lively meals and every interaction. She could be a tough mom, but she was probably aware of that at the same time on some level. And Mildred, like so many of us, but especially Mildred, liked to be right. She would not admit she was not right, even as years passed, and she was not beyond gleeful appreciation when she was proven to be right. Her grandson John told me that Mildred was, his words, a butter partisan. She taunted family members who succumbed to the margarine health fad. And boy, was she gleeful when the science came around to embrace the use of butter. She told them so and was happy to repeatedly share the news and the fact that she had been right. All the more so that this specific example linked her being correct with food. What could be better in terms of sharing her loves? The grandchildren, as we heard, loved being around the house for sleepovers, simply watching TV in the den, or running around. They loved, even if we're slightly annoyed for those who didn't eat meat, that she would take every opportunity to push meat upon them. I'm told even sneaking meat or eggs into the lunches or dinners of vegans, trying to just get them to eat what she saw as proper moving forward. Mildred married into a multi-generation Baltimore Hebrew congregation family and embraced it deeply. When I met her a decade ago, I remember a woman with quite clear, strong opinions and a warm smile as well. As we mourn Mildred, let us remember her full life, from those who knew her as Mash or Millie in her early years, so many of which remained her lifelong friends, to those at Roland Park Place who knew a mellower woman in her final years. Let us pay respect to a woman who shaped her own life and so clearly impacted the lives of friends and family around her. And thus we can say, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may all that was intelligent, strong, and elegant in Mildred's life live on as a blessing for us all, and let us say, Amen. We pause for a moment of silent remembrance. Please rise for Emelei Rachamim. Emelei Rachamim shochen bamromim, hamitzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina, im kedoshim utahorim kazor harakia mazirim, et nishmat malka bat Shimon v'chana shahachal olama, anabal harachamim yistareha beseter kanfav lolamim, Vayitzror b'tzor hachayim et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Mildred DuBois, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. Immediately following the service, interment will take place at the Baltimore Hebrew Cemetery on Berryman's Lane. The family will be receiving today after the burial and tomorrow Monday After 5 o'clock, at Karen and Ben's home, 5711 Chilham Road in Baltimore, there will be a service tonight and a service tomorrow night, both evenings at 7 p.m. May her memory be for a blessing.
As your names are called, will the following active pallbearers please go to the rear of the chapel? Jacob DuBois, Sarah DuBois, John Fitzgerald, Martin Fitzgerald, Anna Fitzgerald, Simon Fitzgerald, Terry Fitzgerald, Arnie Schwartz, and Karen Kotloff. As your names are called, will the following honorary pallbearers please go to the rear of the chapel to form a garb honor? Rona Prensky, Myrna Goldberg, Arnold Davidov, Harold Davidov, and Jay Prensky. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. This concludes our services in our chapel. You may exit through the doors in the rear of the chapel. Thank you.